Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're looking at something you picked out for us.
Yes.
Psalm 73 from the New Living Translation.
Yes.
It's this sort of timeless question that we all kind of face.
Right.
Why do bad people seem to get ahead?
Yeah.
Why do bad people seem to get all the breaks?
That's a good question.
And this psalm grapples with that. So we're going to try to really get into the heart of what it's saying and what it means for us today.
Yeah, that's our goal. So specifically, we're looking at Psalm 73, verses 1 through 28.
Yeah.
And this is in the New Living Translation. We're getting that from YouVersion. Now, it's attributed to Asaph. And, as you said, it deals with this timeless human struggle.
Yeah.
And it does it really efficiently. So I think this will be good for our listeners who really like to get to the essence of things quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, right off the bat, I'm struck by the beginning of the psalm, verse 2.
Okay.
But as for me, I almost lost my footing.
Okay.
My feet were slipping and I was almost gone. Like, he's really on the verge of something here.
It's very dramatic.
What is it that is shaking him to his core?
Well, he tells us, right, he's looking at what appears to be the success, even the prosperity of wicked people. And he's seeing that, and it's throwing him off. He actually says in verse 3, I envied the proud when I saw them prosper despite their wickedness. And he starts describing their lives, and he uses these really vivid descriptions. I mean, these are people who have painless lives, healthy and strong bodies. They don't have any troubles like other people.
He paints a very specific picture, pride like a jeweled necklace, clothed in cruelty. It almost sounds like he's describing like a villain from a movie.
Yeah. I mean, there's a sense that they're not only doing well, they're reveling in it. Right? They have this swagger. They have the sense of self-importance. And it's not just that they're successful. Their behavior is also really getting to Asaph. He talks about how they just scoff, speak only evil. They even boast against the heavens.
There's real arrogance there.
Huge arrogance, yeah.
And what I find interesting is he notes that this behavior is impacting the people around them. Verse 10, the people are dismayed and confused, drinking in all their words. Like, it's almost as if their outward success, no matter how superficial it might be, is actually convincing others. It's making them question their own beliefs.
That's such a great point. It's this idea that appearances can be so deceiving. If someone looks like they're getting away with doing wrong and even thriving, it can make those who are trying to do the right thing start to doubt themselves, start to wonder if they've got it all wrong.
Which brings us to the core of it. Verse 11, he's asking those really tough questions. What does God know? Does the Most High even know what's happening? I mean,
Right.
It feels like the crisis point of faith. If there's justice in the world, if there's a divine order, why does it look like the opposite is happening?
Exactly. Asaph has this belief in God, but his observations are clashing with that belief. I mean, he sees the wicked enjoying a life of ease while their riches multiply. Verse 12. How does that square with the idea of a just and loving God?
And you really feel the weight of that struggle in verse 13. Did I keep my heart pure for nothing? Did I keep myself innocent for no reason? It's so relatable, that feeling that you're putting in the effort, you're trying to do things the right way, and yet you don't see the reward, especially when those who seem to be cutting corners are doing so well.
Yeah, absolutely. He's talking about trouble all day long and pain every morning in verse 14. His life feels so hard compared to the apparent ease of those he's watching. It really makes you wonder about those moments where you've felt that way, right?
Yeah.
Where you've questioned the point of holding on to your principles when it seems like others are getting ahead by ignoring them.
But then there's this interesting shift in verse 15, even in this moment of really intense doubt. He's wrestling with these big questions, but he realizes that speaking them out loud, sharing that bitterness, could actually be harmful. He says he would have been a traitor to your people if he'd spoken out. It shows a real sense of responsibility even as his own faith is wavering.
Yes, he's clearly in deep turmoil, but there's a part of him that's still holding on to the community, to the bigger picture. He knows that his words have power, and he doesn't want to undermine the faith of others who might be struggling too. And this internal struggle leads him to look for answers, to actively seek a different kind of understanding, as he says in verse 16. So I tried to understand why the wicked prosper, but what a difficult task it is. This isn't going to be a simple or easy answer.
And this is where things take a huge turn. Verse 17. Then I went into your sanctuary, O God, and I finally understood the destiny of the wicked. So what happens in this sanctuary that provides him with this new perspective?
Well, in the context of the time, the sanctuary would have been the temple, a physical place of worship and connection with God. But as the song goes on, it becomes clear that it's also symbolic of a much deeper shift in understanding. It's about moving beyond the surface of things, getting to a more spiritual or even philosophical level of understanding. I think of it less as a specific building and more like a moment of profound reflection.
So it's more about getting away from the noise of everyday life and finding that space where you can really see things clearly.
Exactly. That space where you can connect with something bigger than yourself and start to see the bigger picture.
So what is the understanding that he gains in this sanctuary? Because it's a pretty stark contrast to what he was saying before about those wicked people seemingly living these consequence-free lives.
Yeah, it's a total game changer. His revelation is about the ultimate fate of the wicked. Verse 18 says, "Truly you put them on a slippery path and send them sliding over the cliff to destruction." It's this powerful image that their success is temporary. Like they're on this path that's going to lead to a pretty dramatic downfall.
It's a very different picture than the painless lives he was describing earlier.
Completely different. In an instant, they are destroyed, completely swept away by terrors.
Mm.
That's verse 19. Their seeming stability is actually incredibly fragile. And verse 20 adds another layer to it, saying that God laughs at their silly ideas as a person laughs at dreams in the morning. It's this idea that all their self-importance, their arrogance, it's ultimately meaningless in the grand scheme of things.
So this shifting perspective that happens in the sanctuary is really the turning point of the whole psalm. It allows him to see beyond just what's happening right in front of him and consider a much longer-term view, what he calls the destiny of the wicked.
Absolutely. And this realization leads to a really powerful moment of self-awareness. In verse 21, he admits, "Then I realized that my heart was bitter and I was all torn up inside." He's owning those negative feelings that he was consumed by before.
And he doesn't hold back on how wrong he realizes he was. Verse 22, "I was so foolish and ignorant. I must have seemed like a senseless animal to you. It's such a humbling moment."
Totally. He realizes he was stuck in this very limited, almost animalistic way of seeing things, focused on the immediate, the superficial. But even with all this self-reproach, his faith hasn't been completely destroyed. Verse 23 says, "Yet I still belong to you. You hold my right hand." There's this beautiful affirmation of connection. Even after all the doubt and bitterness, he still feels this bond with God.
It's this very strong image that God is holding on to him even through all of that. And it leads him to a sense of trust in a bigger plan.
Right. He says, "You guide me with your counsel, leading me to a glorious destiny," verse 24. So he's shifting his focus from the temporary successes of the wicked to his own eternal journey, his relationship with the divine.
And then he makes this incredibly powerful declaration in verse 25. "Whom have I in heaven but you? I desire you more than anything on earth." It's a total realignment of his priorities.
It's a beautiful statement of faith. He's come to understand that material wealth, even a life without hardship, pales in comparison to his connection with God. And in verse 26, he reinforces this, saying, "My health may fail and my spirit may grow weak, but God remains the strength of my heart. He's mine forever." This isn't about the physical and the temporary. It's about finding a source of strength and security that endures.
And he's not shy about pointing out the consequences for those who turn away from God. Verse 27, "Those who desert him will perish, for you destroy those who abandon you." It really emphasizes the contrast between the two destinies he's been talking about.
Right? The path of the wicked might look appealing for a while, but ultimately it leads to destruction. And the psalm ends with this beautiful affirmation of faith. Verse 28, "But as for me, how good it is to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my shelter, and I will tell everyone about the wonderful things you do." He's come full circle from that place of near despair and envy to a place of renewed purpose, a place where he wants to share the goodness he's found in his faith with everyone.
So to kind of summarize the key takeaways from our deep dive into Psalm 73, we've seen this really raw and relatable human struggle with the seeming unfairness of the wicked prospering. But then there's this pivotal moment where seeking a deeper understanding, symbolized by entering the sanctuary, leads to a new perspective on their ultimate fate. And then ultimately we see a powerful reaffirmation of faith, recognizing that worldly success is fleeting while a relationship with something greater endures.
Exactly. It's a journey that I think so many of us can relate to. And especially for our listeners who value getting to the heart of things quickly, I think this psalm offers a really concise but incredibly profound exploration of that timeless human dilemma. It gives us a framework for navigating those moments when we look around and we see things that don't seem to add up. When we question why bad things happen to good people and good things seem to happen to those who don't deserve it.
It really is about finding those spaces where we can connect with a larger perspective, like Asaph did in the sanctuary. So, a final thought for everyone listening. Think about the different sanctuaries you have in your own life. Places where you find clarity and a sense of perspective when you're faced with things that are confusing or even painful. Maybe it's a physical space, a place you go to feel peace. Maybe it's a mental space, a practice you have, a way of thinking that helps you step back and see the bigger picture. Or maybe it's even a relationship, a connection with someone who helps you make sense of things. How can you intentionally seek out and engage with those sanctuaries? How can they help you strengthen your own core beliefs and find peace when you're faced with the things in the world that just don't seem to make sense? That's something to think about. And thanks for joining us for this.